welcome to this special episode of Cameo.
We are here at the 56th annual BFI London Film Festival.
And here's what's coming up on the show.
We'll look at some of this year's festival's highlights, such as Ben Affleck's latest film Argo, as well as smaller releases like Village at the End of the World and White Elephant.
We chat to the directors of Seven Psychopaths and TheReluctant Fundamentalist, as well as attending the press conference for Great Expectations.
But first we went to Leicester Square for the Crossfire Hurricane premiere.
You've now been on your second tour of the United States. How was it?
Things started happening for us.
Released to coincide with the 50th anniversary of one of rock and roll's greatest bands, Crossfire Hurricane is the new documentary from Oscar-nominated filmmaker Brett Morgan. With particular emphasis on the first 20 years of the band, the film charts the history of the Rolling Stones, while contextualising their music within the era in which it was created. In a manner similar to Senna, the film features no on-screen talking heads, as instead narrated through interviews conducted with the Stones themselves.
So, before we start, I just want to ask you, how's your memory?
However, this also leads to the film's biggest problem. As sole interviewees, as well as the film's producers, Crossfire Hurricane is essentially a celebration of the Rolling Stones rather than an insightful critique.
Nevertheless, the film is accessible and enjoyable for those less familiar with the Stones' work, while hardcore fans will revel in the band's anecdotes and the rare archive footage, which has been brilliantly edited to make an endlessly entertaining film. We give Crossfire Hurricane 4 out of 5.
In contrast to the frenzy of Crossfire Hurricane, Village at the End of the World is a contemplative documentary from British director Sarah Gavron. The film follows the inhabitants of a remote village in Greenland and raises questions about tradition, community and the environment. We met up with Sarah at the Mayfair Hotel to find out more. Congratulations at being at the London Film Festival this year. We really enjoyed the film. Obviously it raises issues concerning a small community trying to cope with globalisation and climate change. Do you personally have an opinion on whether the village would be able to sustain itself in the future?
I think it's hard to predict. I think they're going to struggle. The truth is, the ice is melting, which is going to change their hunting practices. And social media is opening, it's changing the mental landscape of someone like Lars, the teenager who now knows what's out there.
How come you got this idea and decided to make it into a documentary and not make it into a fictional story?
I'd always thought it'd be interesting to make a documentary and exercise a different muscle in a way. And we went to this place and it seemed to lend itself to a documentary form. They're very hospitable by nature. Culturally, they're hospitable, the Greenlandic people. And they like children and they open their doors to us and we formed bonds, we formed friendships, which I think will continue.
Simple, beautifully shot and thought-provoking, Village at the End of the World gives insight into a community that's fighting to survive in the modern world. We give it 3 stars out of 5.
The London Film Festival welcomes filmmakers from all over the world. As well as the best of British, we checked out the Argentinian film White Elephant.
Señor Jesús, no tengas en cuenta nuestros pecados, sino la fe de tu pueblo, y conforme a tu palabra, concédele la paz y la unidad.
From director Pablo Chapero, White Elephant tells the tale of 2 Catholic priests working in Buenos Aires' biggest slum. In the chaotic world of drugs, rioting and poverty, the feeling of hopelessness tests the men's faith.
Soltame. Es una locura, pensá. Ya lo pensé. Ese no es el trabajo de un sacerdote.
¿Cuál es el trabajo de un sacerdote?
No te hagas el boludo, sabes muy bien de qué estoy hablando.
We met up with Chapero on a rather wet red carpet to get his thoughts on the film.
Where did the inspiration for the film come from?
Yeah, it was some years ago, a long time ago. It came from some personal experience in this kind of social work. Of course, I am not a priest, but I did some of these works in places like that, neighborhoods or slums.
Do you believe that religion can help in certain sort of social situations with poverty?
It's complicated because religion is not just helping. It's for them it's a way of evangelization at the end. It's not just about helping other people. So I'm not sure if it's really helping, but for the people that have faith, it means something different.
The film has an incredible documentary realism to it. Did you come into any sort of difficulties filming in the slums?
No, it wasn't dangerous at all. And actually, when we went into the places, we go there also inviting the people to be part of the film. I mean, you need to control everything in order to give this sense of improvisation.
Though the film may lack a clear narrative, it's nonetheless a compelling character piece with some powerful performances. We give it 3 out of 5.
From Mike Newell, the director of 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and David Nichols, the writer of One Day, comes this brand new adaptation of Charles Dickens' timeless classic Great Expectations.
Hold your noise! Hold your noise! You little devil, I'll cut your throat! Tell us your name, quick!
Complete with an incredible cast including Helena Bonham Carter and Ralph Fiennes, this is one of this year's biggest films at the festival. This coming-of-age story follows Pip, played by Jeremy Irvine, who prospers from a mysterious benefactor, all the while remaining captivated by Estella, played by Holliday Grainger, the adopted daughter of Bonham Carter's Miss Havisham. We went along to the film's press conference to see what the cast and crew had to say about their interpretation of the film.
I did want us to be faithful, but I also wanted to convey what I felt very, very strongly about it, that Dickens was a much subtler, much warmer, much more emotional, much more moving author than he's sometimes allowed to be.
I think of almost all English writers. His is the voice that an English readership will instantly recognise. I don't think you can mistake his voice.
I certainly didn't approach this any differently to how to approach any other role.
As an actor, you always try and find some redeemable quality in the character you're playing. You always try to find some hook you can get on where you think, not that you want to make him likeable, but you somehow in your mind you feel you have to justify his actions.
Yeah.
With Jaggers, there's none.
So I love that character, and so I wanted to, sort of give it my best.
The risk of sounding like an old lovey. It was a good company feeling, and you very often don't get that on budget movies where everybody's sent off to their trailer for 5 hours and you don't see each other for days. We were all hanging about the set all day, largely because it was a huge hole in the ground in the A4.
We were sort of forced together, all of us, by misfortune in a way. I don't know whether were you guys aware of that?
Oh yeah, no, we had a little talk, do you not remember?
Sadly, the film doesn't live up to the quality its talent and pedigree promise. Although closer to the source than previous adaptations, this also makes it impenetrable for audiences unfamiliar with the text. With slow pacing and an uncharismatic turn for Irvine, this was a dull and disappointing film which we give 2 stars out of 5.
He has come into a handsome fortune, and he has great expectations.
Moving on to a slightly more lively film, Chris talks to Martin McDonagh about his latest black comedy, 7 Psychopaths.
7 Psychopaths is the second feature film from Martin McDonagh, the writer-director behind modern cult classic In Bruges. Here, Collin Farrell plays Hollywood scriptwriter struggling to complete his latest work, entitled 7 Psychopaths. Luckily, or perhaps terrifyingly, the inspiration isn't far away, thanks to his friends in the dog napping business, played by Christopher Walken and Sam Rockwell, the enemy they create in Woody Harrelson's mob boss after they steal his beloved Shih Tzu, and the mysterious Zachariah, played by Tom Waits.
Okay, you seem normal. Come on in. We gotta get this dog off the street because it's kidnapped from a maniac.
Dandy, would you go get my dog back?
Supremely knowing and self-referential, the film skips through a series of hilarious yet violent vignettes, all the while in search of a clear narrative thread. Although at times thought-provoking, they also give the film a fragmentary and disjointed feel. Furthermore, as the film freely admits, its female characters are woefully undeveloped, with Olga Kurylenko and Abby Cornish particularly underused.
Well, that's just fucking great! Oh, great! You know what that is? Do you know what that is?
Great. However, with terrific performances from Walken and Rockwell, a witty, intelligent script, and some great visual comedy, there's a lot to enjoy and admire about Seven Psychopaths. We give it 4 out of 5.
Put your hands up. No, but I've got a gun. I don't care. It doesn't make any sense. Too bad.
You've got an amazing cast lined up here. A lot of the stars are quite famous for playing unstable characters. So did you give them a lot of direction when you were sort of coming up with the psychopathic characters, or did you give them free rein?
Kind of free rein, but in some ways some of the people you'd expect to be more psychopathic because of their past films aren't so much. So that was part of the fun of this. For me as a director, I think the biggest thing is to hire the best actors around and then kind of not direct them too much, just let them make sure they stick to the script, but just let them go.
There's a lot in this film about actually making a film and writing a script. So Collin Farrell's character Martin seems to be struggling to find inspiration.
Yeah.
Is that something you can sympathise with? Have you struggled to find inspiration before?
No, I think he's a bit of a wuss for not being able to come up with... I think I'm really lazy, but I've never had writer's block.
Some of your films, they have this mix of black humour and violence. Do you see those two sort of themes being connected?
I don't know. My comedy always comes out kind of dark, and I don't know why. But I don't think it necessarily has to have violence in it. And I think this is as far down the violence road as I'm going to go.
It's about 7 fucking psychopaths!
I want to know what happens at the end.
From a satire on Hollywood violence to the controversial topic of terrorism now, as we talk to director Mira Nair about her new film, The Reluctant Fundamentalist.
Based on the international bestseller by Mohsin Hamid, The Reluctant Fundamentalist tells the story of Genghis Khan, a Pakistani Muslim who moves to America in search of fortune. After quickly rising to the highest ranks of a major international firm, his dream life is shattered by the events of 9/11 and the prejudice he faces thereafter.
In that moment I should have felt sorrow or anger, but all I felt was awe, or audacity. The ruthlessness of the act was surpassed only by its genius. And David had struck Goliath. Have you never felt a split second of pleasure at arrogance brought low?
Told in flashbacks during an interview with Liev Schreiber, a journalist, we are left to question whether Khan has now become a fundamentalist threat. Directed by Mira Nair, this thought-provoking film features 2 outstanding performances by Riz Ahmed as Khan and Kiefer Sutherland as his boss.
You think you're the only person who's experienced injustice firsthand? Throw a rock out there anywhere in this city and it'll land on the grave of someone who's seen worse than you.
However, some awkward dialogue, slow pacing and a largely unnecessary frame story involving a kidnapping means this film never quite reaches its full dramatic potential. We give The Reluctant Fundamentalist 3 stars out of 5.
I'm here with Mira Nair, the director of The Reluctant Fundamentalist. So, how have you enjoyed this week?
Well, it's wonderful to have such a passionate audience, as in London, that it's just, amazing. It really speaks to people here.
The novel from which you adapted the film was a major international success. What difficulties did you have with adapting the novel onto screen?
Well, the adaptation of any novel, it has to work as a springboard for the director's imagination. It's not fidelity at all.
Finally, if there was a student looking to get into the film industry, have you got any advice for them?
I would say make stories of what you know. If we don't tell our own stories, no one else will tell them. And so hence the Reluctant Fundamentalist.
Shiver in the dark, it's raining in the park, but meantime sound of the river, you stop and you hold everything. A band is blowing Dixie.
If I'm doing a fake movie, it's going to be a fake hit.
After Gone Baby Gone and The Town, Ben Affleck returns to cement his reputation as a solid director with Argo. The film tells the incredible story of the exfiltration of 6 American embassy workers from Tehran in 1980.
If we're going to go, then we need to go now.
Brits turned them away, Kiwis turned them away, Canadians took them in.
It's gonna take a miracle to get them out.
Based on a true life story, the film uses archive footage to great effect, especially when depicting the student protesters who have taken control of the embassy from which the Americans have escaped. The seemingly impossible task of rescuing them and bringing them back to America is taken on by Agent Tony Mendez, played by Ben Affleck.
This is what I do. I get people out, and I've never left anyone behind.
Tension and anticipation are subtly balanced in the film by the humour that's present. Affleck comes up with a plan to save the Americans and seeks the advice of producer Lester Siegel, played by Alan Arkin, and John Chambers, a special effects expert played by John Goodman. They create a fake production company and Affleck manages to persuade the Americans to pose as members of the crew. With a great supporting cast, including a noteworthy performance by Bryan Cranston, a detailed production design, and Affleck's most accomplished directorial feature to date, Argo is a stunning achievement. Argo is one of our favourite films at this year's festival, and we give it 5 stars.
You don't have a better bad idea than this?
This is the best bad idea we have, sir. By far.
So there you have it. Argo is our top pick from this year's festival.
Well, that's all from us. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed it as much as we did.
We'll always give what you want.